If you want to help out and support the channel, there are a few things you can do. Go check out Flipside Gaming and use the promo code VOIDMAGE in all caps. This will get you 10% off all orders $10 or more. And if you go shopping on tcgplayer.com, go use my affiliate link in the description below. That way all purchases you make will go towards helping the channel. And lastly, go check out my Patreon. It's a more direct way that you can help the channel while also getting some more interaction. I appreciate all of your support. If you haven't already, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Top 10 Commander video. We're going to do Born of the Gods this time, in preparation for Theros Beyond Death in January 2020. Born of the Gods is a pretty decent set, considering not a lot of people bought it. It was the middle set of the Theros block, so it was easy to overlook, but there are some standouts for Commander. Going over the honorable mentions first, like I always do. Brimaz, King of Oreskos, a decent token creator, but other than that, there's not a lot here. As a Commander, he's pretty weak unless you bought into Tiny Leaders, and if that's the case, I have some bad news for you. Kiora the Crashing Wave probably would have made the list a few years ago, but there's just so many Planeswalkers now. They all kind of blend together. Nothing really stands out unless it's really good. And her abilities are okay, they're just not really going to offer you much synergy. Magis God of Slaughter is the one god that didn't make the list, and to be honest, it's because he's pretty lackluster. Like, imagine if Sheoldred gave you the option of taking 2 damage instead of sacrificing a creature, she probably wouldn't be a big deal. And there you pretty much have Magis God of Slaughter. It's not so much about Magis, but rather the deck you can build around him. He just tacks on to whatever you're already doing with something like Painful Quandary. Much better cards that are capable of grinding away at your opponents, forcing them to actually make tough decisions. Archetype of Finality. The archetype cards are just ridiculous in Commander. You're taking away a keyword from your opponent's creatures and giving that keyword to all of your creatures. And Death Touch is a pretty good one. If all of your creatures have Death Touch, it's going to make it harder for your opponents to block without giving up their creatures. It is 6 mana, and there are some better keywords from the archetype creatures. Just thought that this one deserved a mention. Number 10 is Hero's Podium. Very specific in where it sees play, so it's probably good that it's number 10 and not any higher. But with the newer Commander option in Kethis, you see certain decks that take advantage of legendary creatures. Hero's Podium acting as sort of a coat of arms for legendary creatures, while giving you the ability to search up another one pretty easily. Very strong utility card if you're thinking of building that kind of deck. Number 9 is Ephana, God of the Polis. To be honest, this is a little bit better than Magis God of Slaughter. Even if it isn't super interesting, it is just card draw. But if you can manipulate your creatures entering the battlefield and do this on your opponent's turn, you have the potential of drawing more cards. If you have more opponents, there's more upkeeps, and you can draw way more than you normally would in just a 1v1 game. So you really have the benefit of multiplayer. You're actually getting something good. Even if card draw is as simple as it is, still a pretty decent god. Number 8 is Perplexing Chimera. Blue loves stealing creatures, and that's mostly what blue does, but sometimes you get cards that can steal spells. This is probably the most interesting card in the whole set, to be honest. When you think of its impact in Commander, you see a lot more political cards, and even if you don't end up stealing anything good, it could be a reason why your opponents don't play anything good. So it's going to end up having its impact in the game. It's interesting to see what the opponent does after they get a Perplexing Chimera, to see what they do after that. Just a very interesting card, even if it isn't going to be super powerful, even if it doesn't see as much play as some other cards on the list. Number 7 is Phoenix, God of Deception. Again, like Hero's Podium, it's very specific to a certain playstyle. If you're not playing Mill, you're probably not going to consider Phoenix, but just on sheer power, we can't ignore this card. You get to tap a creature, and you're milling a player the number of cards equal to its toughness. This obviously has combo potential. There's cards like Eater of the Dead, and as far as it goes, if you want to play Mill, Phoenix is probably one of the best Commander options that you can have. Just again, very specific to that playstyle, not going to have universal playability as a god, and that does work against it. Number 6 is Archetype of Imagination. Very good for combat. Might as well read your creatures are unblockable. Yeah, an opponent's creature could have reach, but that probably won't come up as often. You're giving all of your creatures flying and taking it away from your opponent's creatures. Out of all of the keywords the archetypes can give, this is probably the most common one you're actually taking away from your opponent's creatures. There's only one other one that I would consider better than this, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But if we're just talking about the most underrated cards from sets, Archetype of Imagination is just ridiculously powerful. Blue doesn't always have a lot of ways of just overwhelming your opponents, and having that in creature form is actually quite surprising. Number 5 is Plea for Guidance. If you're like me and you can't believe that there are certain tutors like Idyllic Tutor that are super expensive, then you have a cheap budget option in Plea for Guidance, which is pretty much Idyllic Tutor times 2. It's 6 mana to search for 2 enchantments, which might be a bit expensive for some people, but you are getting your mana's worth. It's also cool when you consider the fact that the gods are enchantments, and there's a wide variety of enchantment decks that you can put this into. Number 4 is the Archetype of Endurance. Yes, hexproof to me is better and more valuable in a game than flying. You get to protect your other creatures, your commander, and green is just a color where you're going to see more creatures anyway. So the impact of making your board hexproof and green, your opponents have to find a board wipe, some way to deal with multiple creatures instead of just targeting, making Archetype of Endurance, even if it is 8 mana, a powerhouse in green. And number 3 is Xenagos, God of Revels. Now we're talking here, we have versatility, we have power. You can throw this into just about every green and red deck and threaten things like commander damage. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. This is something that is super valuable, and even if you just consider the haste, it's still pretty good, but you're doubling that creature's power. If it already has evasion, you're likely going to end someone's game. This obviously being really deadly with things like Infect, but seeing as it already works out well in the colors that it's in, throw this into just about any creature deck and you're good to go. Number 2, we have Courser of Kruphix. This was just a very good all-around value card when it was seeing play in Standard, but in Commander I think it's still just as good. It's not going to be an Oracle of Moldiah, but you get solid toughness and you get to gain some life, making it a good card to throw into just about every landfall deck. It's such a valuable thing to have to make sure that the card on top of your deck isn't just going to be another land, because you can play it, so you can speed your own game up, making it so that you can get to your spells that you can play. Such a good card. And the number 1 card from Born of the Gods for Commander is Karametra, God of the Harvests. Out of all of the gods in this set, this one is probably the best one for Commander. I just mentioned how good Courser of Kruphix is, and a lot of that is because of the dominance of land strategies in Commander. Karametra basically turns all of your creatures into wood elves, but even better because it's on a cast trigger, and you can also search up some plains. It's also good because it doesn't just force you to get basics, you could get things like a Savannah, a Temple Garden, and if you're in more than just Celestia, you obviously have other dual lands you can go and get. Karametra is just ridiculous because mana is the most valuable resource in the game. Without it, you can't do anything. And if every turn you're playing a few creatures, you're getting a few more lands, which will then increase the amount of mana you have your following turn. If you have any sort of landfall, she's perfect. She gets you more of those lands coming into play. Here you have a situation where the god is super simple in what it does, but what it does, you can do it in excess, making it way more powerful than something like Ephana, and way more abusable than really any of the other gods on this list, in my opinion. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think of Born of the Gods. Let me know what you think of Theros Beyond Death. That'll be coming out next month. You all have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video. Just wanted to say thanks to the patrons who are supporting me on patreon.com. Go check it out. There are different tiers with their own rewards. One of them is having your name in the credits of my videos. I know it's not much, but it's something that I can do to show my appreciation. Thanks again, and have a good day.